Hare Krishna, dear devotees. First, there should be, I guess, only fair, a word of explanation as to why I'm sitting here when there's a bunch of senior devotees sitting in front of me. And that's basically because I'm from here, and all of these devotees like me. And I'm not here very often, so they're like, oh.
And also one thing Yogendra neglected to say is that Prabhu has taken initiation from Niranjana Maharaj. And Adi is his birth name, and that's our name that we're used to calling him, but his name is Achintya Svarupa Prabhu.
And he's probably going to be the president too.
So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Rayanam Namaskritya. Rayanam Namaskritya. Ram Chaiva Narottama. Ram Chaiva Narottama. Evam Saraswatim Vyasa. Evam Saraswatim Vyasa. Jaya Mudilaya. Jaya Mudilaya. Asprayashu Bhadreshu. Asprayashu Bhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttamashlake. Bhagavati Uttamashlake. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 14, Text 44. This is the last verse in the chapter, entitled The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Manyaseten yata naro. Manyaseten yata naro. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Manyaseten yata naro. Manyaseten yata naro. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Hridayenat Mabanduna. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Shunyasmi Rahita Nitya. Manyaseten yata naro. Manyaseten yata naro. Prabhuji's.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Sunyosmi Sahito Nityam.
Sunyasmi Rahita Nityam.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Sunyasmi Rahito Nityam.
Sunyasmi Rahita Nityam.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Shunyasmi Rahito Nityam.
Sunyasmi Rahita Nityam.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Manyaseten yata naro. Vaishnavis?
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Shunyasmi Rahita Nityam.
Sunyasmi Rahita Nityam.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Manyaseten yata naro.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata.
Kachit Prestat Tabmenata. Hridayenat Mabanduna.
Sunyosmi Rahito Nityam.
Sunyasmi Rahita
Atmabandhuna
Hridayena
Shunyosmi Rahito Nityam
Shunyosmi Rahito Nityam
Manyase Te Nathanaru
Manyase Te Nathanaru
Kachitastatamenata
Kachitastatamenata
Hridayenatmabandhuna
Hridayena
Shunyasmi rahito nityam
Shunyasmi Rahito Nityam
Manyasya Te Nathanaru
Manyase Te Nathanaru.
Word for word. Kachit.
Kachit.
Whether.
Whether.
Preshtatamena.
Preshtatamena.
Unto the most dear one.
Unto the most dear one.
Ata.
Ata.
My brother Arjuna.
My brother Arjuna.
Hridayena.
Hridayena.
Most intimate.
Most intimate.
Atmabandhuna.
Atmabandhuna.
Own friend Lord Krishna.
Own friend Lord Krishna.
Shunya.
Shunya.
Void.
Void.
Asmi.
Asmi.
I am.
I am.
Rahita.
Rahita.
Having lost.
Having lost.
Nityam.
Nityam.
For all time.
For all time.
Manyase.
Manyase.
You think.
You think.
Te. Your. Anyata.
Anyata.
Otherwise.
Otherwise.
Na. Never.
Never.
Rook.
Rook.
Mental distress.
Mental distress.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada.
God.
Translation. Or is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. Purport. All the inquisitiveness of Maharaj Yudhisthira about the world situation was already conjectured by Maharaj Yudhisthira on the basis of Lord Krishna's disappearance from the vision of the world. And this was disclosed by him because of the acute dejection of Arjuna, which could not have been possible otherwise. So even though he was doubtful about it, he was obliged to inquire frankly from Arjuna on the basis of Sri Narada's indication. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna. I'll read the translation one more time. Or is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. Om Jnanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swabhadantikam Pancha Gopatrubhyascha Giva Sindhu Vyevacha Adiganam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, at this point in Srimad Bhagavatam, we're at a really emotional part. This is the climax of the chapter called The Disappearance of Lord Krishna. And what's been going on is the Pandavas in their different scenarios they're not having a good time. First, the chapter starts out with Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he's observing all sorts of just terrible things. Lightning bolts are flashing out of nowhere. There's always dust and darkness in the sky. It's raining blood. Jackals are running amok and maybe breathing fire. I don't recall exactly. Yes, I think breathing fire. And, it's a bunch of terrible things. And Yudhisthira is getting this premonition that something very terrible has happened. And it has already been alluded to in earlier chapters by Lord Narada, by Sri Narada, that Lord Krishna will be leaving the planet at some point in the near future. So Yudhisthira Maharaj, he he's trying to figure out all these things, and you kind of see this sort of portion of denial in the earlier parts of the chapter, where he's asking, well, actually really more in the later parts of the chapter, right until this last verse. Because first he notices all these things, and he calls Bhima, his younger, his closest age brother, and he starts sharing his mind. He's saying, what's going on? Look at this happening. Look at that happening. What's going on? I hope nothing happened with Arjuna when he was in Dwarka, when he went to go see Lord Krishna. I hope nothing happened. And you can see there's a lot of worry in in this chapter. And then, right in the middle of his discussion with Bhima, wondering where Arjuna is, Arjuna arrives. They see his chariot pulling in, but this is not the Arjuna that they're used to seeing. They're used to seeing Sabyasachi, Dhananjaya, this very powerful. He was the most powerful and most beloved of all the Pandavas. And that's saying something. And so they see him coming in. He's totally dejected. He has no effulgence. His head is down. He won't meet their eyes. He's crying. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he wants to know what's happening. So he starts asking him what's happening. Starts asking, basically just starts asking what has happened. What happened? Did something happen when you went to go see Lord Krishna? And then he almost loses himself. It's really interesting. For like 8 verses, he kind of forgets. As soon as he mentions Lord Krishna, he kind of forgets he's asking about Krishna. And for like 8 verses, he's just glorifying Lord Krishna and glorifying Dwarka and glorifying all the Dwarkavasis in their different capacities. And then he kind of like gets back down to business, and he's like, so what's wrong? And he goes through a host of things which we are quite clearly not supposed to do, right? Were you inexcusably rude to some people? Did some people want to dine with you and you rejected them, right? Did you reject a qualified woman? Did you associate with a scandalous woman, right? He's asking all of these questions, and Arjuna is, nothing. He's just not. And this is just with every, he's really reaching for something here. Yudhishthira really hoping he's going to stumble upon some reason. He's going to say, were you rude to some old man? And Arjuna's going to say, yeah, that was it, and everyone's going to be okay. But he's got a feeling that that's not what's going on. So, were you defeated by someone inferior to you? Which, never happened. Arjuna beat Lord Shiva. Right? So he's really grasping at straw here. And then, finally, everyone knows it, but no one wants to say it. And Yudhishthira says it, and he asks, or I'm going to read it again, because it's so, just listen to the way he asked this first question. Or is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. Right? Or is it that you are feeling empty for all time? That's rough. But that's what he's seeing. That's what he's seeing in his little brother, and that's what he's feeling inside his heart. So it's not a big stretch for him to ask this. And then the next chapter, of course, is called "The Pandavas Retire Timely." So as soon as they realize that Krishna's gone, it's like, okay, the game's up. We're out of here. They had no interest in ruling the kingdom and in being these great, powerful people that they were if Krishna wasn't part of the equation. No interest whatsoever. They left the kingdom to Parikshit Maharaj. And if you recall, he wasn't that old at this time. He was very young. Just a baby, practically. But as soon as Krishna was out of the picture, they said, okay, we did our part, world's stable, world's okay, we're out of here. They didn't want anything more to do with it. Now, so that's kind of a summarization of what's going on here in this chapter. Now, for me, and I was reading through, obviously, because I wanted to be able to say something of some intelligence. And so I was reading through this chapter beforehand, the verses and purports. And one thing that, there's a couple things that I really liked. And one of them Well, I'll say the one that I hadn't been thinking about because it's actually kind of more interesting. So one of the things I really like is when Yudhishthira Maharaj goes off on his tangent and he starts just glorifying Lord Krishna and specifically actually his associates. And he doesn't ask about the welfare of Lord Krishna. He asks about the welfare of all the associates because he knows that nothing can ever happen to Lord Krishna. That's the strongest belief of the devotee. Something might happen to me, something might happen to you, something might happen to anyone, but nothing's going to happen to Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is my Lord, so in the long run, nothing's going to happen to me. We're okay. Prabhupada describes this in one of the purports. He says that this is what makes a devotee fearless, and this is kind of what I'm going to talk about because it's great. So in the purport, one of the times, one verse is kind of dedicated to Satyabhama, who is, of course, he's not Krishna's principal wife in Dwarka. Rukmini is Krishna's principal wife in Dwarka, but she's the most, you could say she's kind of the most dominant wife. I remember once hearing a class by some illustrious personality in Sri Mayapur, I don't remember who, and they said something very funny. They said that when Krishna joked with Queen Rukmini that I'm going to take sannyas and leave all of this and renounce Dwarka, then Rukmini fainted. He said the reason he did that with Rukmini is because it wouldn't have worked with Satyabhama. There would have been fireworks. They said he would have seen hell if he tried to do that with Satyabhama. So he knew how to map out his relationships. He wanted to try that with Satyabhama. And then, so what's alluded to in the purport, it says that he brought Satyabhama the Parijata tree. And a lot of us, I'm sure, will remember the story just from reading and hearing Krishna, but it was just because she wanted it. It wasn't like, there's like a really good plot in Krishna book, but this wasn't part of that plot. She just wanted the tree. And she wanted the tree because Rukmini got a flower. And she was like, if she gets a flower, I want the whole tree. And there's only one tree. There's only one tree in the universe, and it's in Indra's personal garden. Right? It's in the king of the universe. So Krishna's like, okay, I'll go get the tree. And then Satyabhama's like, no, I'm coming with you. So Satyabhama sits on the back of Garuda with Krishna, and then Krishna wages war against the demigods, wins, steals the tree, and then goes and puts it in Satyabhama's garden. Right? And, that's just great. It's great that a devotee can do that. That's the fearlessness of a devotee. What she's doing wasn't even it's not even aside from its relationship with Krishna, it's not particularly laudable. It's not one of those things you read about and you get that just moral feeling where yeah, she got the tree. It's she just wanted a tree, so Krishna went and got her the tree. Right? And it's that's such a wonderful thing. That's what's awarded to us as Vaishnavas. And then it goes to the next level, and it says that all the yadus are totally fearless and full of courage because of their protection of Lord Sri Krishna. It says totally. And for that reason, they trample through the halls of Sudharma, which is their courthouse. They trample through the halls of Sudharma, which was only meant for the feet of the demigods. Right? And I wish I knew the details of the story, and if someone does, please immediately speak up. Oh, that's another thing. If anyone has any questions or disagrees with me in any way or has some comment or is like, hey, that's not true or something, then just raise your hand and say it. I'm not used to the wait till the end of the class forum. So,
I do have something to say.
Yes.
The Pandavas ruled for 36 years after the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Parikshit.
Oh, he wasn't a baby.
He was a young man.
Okay, my mistake. Thank you. Okay, so they were being responsible. Yes, I'll let you do it.
All the leelas of the Lord are transcendental,
Yes.
So even if Krishna got Satyabhama a tree just because she wanted it, it doesn't have to be any lesser than any of his other leelas.
Right, of course. And in fact, you could argue it's more.
Maybe it is more.
Because
maybe it's a lesson for the husband.
It wasn't one of those Parichanaya Sadhanam Vinashaya Jadiskrtam moments. It was one of those I carry what you lack and preserve what you have moments. It was like, okay, you don't have the tree, you're going to get the tree. So I completely agree. I wasn't in any way trying to belittle that.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everything and anything the Lord does is absolute. Prabhupada used to say that in any society, you catch a thief, you know, especially like in India, you beat them up, or here you throw them in jail, and other places you cut off their hand. Like in any case, it's not nice, whatever you do to a thief. Krishna steals stuff and we sing about it all the time. You know, it's just like he's great and we love it. You know, he says the same thing with, you know, someone's a debauchee, they sneak around with other people's fiancés or wives. They're just the worst. Like no one wants to deal with that person. That is the pinnacle of Krishna consciousness for us. We you know, so everything that Krishna does is immediately perfect. And even that's kind of like a wrong way of thinking about it. Everything that he does, it's not that it becomes perfect because he does it. It was always perfect. And we made it imperfect by disconnecting it from him. So anyways, but thank you. Good point. I don't know what I was going to say.
I was going to ask you.
Oh, good.
I was going to ask you to, if you could, kind of expound a little bit more on that relationship of Krishna with his devotee, how significant it is, and how it fits into our...
Right. So I'll get into that in a second. So, but just since we're already talking, does anyone know how? Because what it says is that it says this in the purport, and I didn't know this, and this is great. That they actually went. It wasn't just that assembly hall was fit for the gods. It was the gods. It was Indra's and all the demigods. That's where they used to hold court and kind of decide what goes on in the universe. And at some point, the Yadus just went and stole the entire courthouse, the whole assembly hall. A bunch of Yadus just went up to heaven like, we want this. And so does anyone know more details on that story? Anyway, so we can just imagine, that's a great story. And what Prabhupada goes into, he's talking for an hour, for a page and a half. He gives a page and a half purport on this, and what he talks about, he says that this is a devotee is completely fearless. And he gives this really nice example. He says that if someone's asleep, he says fearfulness comes from not knowing. If someone's asleep and they see a terrifying tiger in their dream, they're going to be very scared. But their friend can be sitting right next to that person. And he's awake. And he's not scared. Because he can see there's no tiger. Right? There's not a tiger. They're whatever. They're in their dorm or whatever. And they're totally fine. So that's a devotee. A devotee's eyes, and then, so Prabhupada expands on that for expands on that for like half a page. And then, at the end, he says, but even if there is a real tiger, the devotee's still not scared because Krishna will protect him. Right? So that's the position of a devotee. It's like they're never scared because there's nothing to be scared of, and once in a while there is something to be scared of, and they're not scared of it because they have Krishna. Right? So that's another thing that the Yadus. It was just. That's like I don't know the story, so I'm going to allow myself a teensy bit of speculation. But I imagine that wasn't one of those to preserve the universe and, to save all the inhabitants of the world, they had to go steal the assembly hall from the gods. That's probably not what happened. It was probably along the Satyabhama lines of that's such a cool courthouse, we want that. Right? And then they took it because they can, because they're devotees. Right? So we should not forget. I was listening to I was in a class by Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he said, it is our responsibility to have a ridiculous amount of fun in Krishna consciousness. That's what he said. And he said, because if we don't have a ridiculous amount of fun in Krishna consciousness, we're such an ananda, we're anandamoy vyasa, that's the one. We're anandamoy, we're geared to seek those three things. We want knowledge, we want an eternal, stable situation, and we want happiness. So if we don't give ourselves those things in Krishna consciousness, we don't make allowances for those things for us in Krishna consciousness, when we're still in that kind of jaundice stage, where we're not getting that supreme happiness from Hare Krishna, we have to make allowances for happiness within Krishna consciousness in some way. We have to have a ridiculous amount of fun in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we're going to go somewhere else to have a ridiculous amount of fun. Like Christians, or us maybe. Right? Not to pick on Christians, but, it's like no one goes to church because they want to have a good time. They're called God-fearing Christians. That means that they go to church because well, they fear God and they want to do the right thing, but no one, maybe ever, has gone to, or I don't want to say that, that's rude. But commonly, people don't go to church, or maybe we don't go to the temple in search of a good time. We go because we're devotees, we're supposed to, so on and so forth.
Actually, there was a popular saying, especially in the 70s, that it's so good it must be sinful.
Right, yeah, and that's, and that's a laudable,
In other words, there's no
not
pleasure.
laudable, but that's a reasonable thought.
There's no pleasure in spiritual life.
Yeah, so we have to find it, we have to create it for ourselves. So I think that's what the Yadus were doing. It was like, we're not the kings of the world, we don't have a whole lot to do, we serve Krishna, but we're Kshatriyas and we're passionate, let's go do something crazy. And they went and stole the courthouse of the gods, and that's awesome. Yes?
Well, we can't give the wrong impression because devotees, Prabhupada said devotees need to follow the laws, right, that are given.
Right.
So, maybe the demigods can get away with certain things like that, but we really can't.
Right, that's a really good point. I'm glad we brought that down to a bit more of a balanced view. But no, it's true.
From mother's point of view.
Right, that's an intelligent one. So that is important. That's very important. We have to act like sadhakas. We have to. Prabhupada wanted us to be first-class examples. Prabhupada very frequently would say, "I'm creating a society of first-class men." So it's not like our first big thing as devotees should be like a coup of the White House. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I am saying that. Anyways, I was just bringing out that point that there is that spontaneity and there is that fun within Krishna consciousness. And we have to be able to allow that for ourselves and seek after it sometimes. Yes, Prabhu?
I think the essential point is that taking the assembly house, because they were pure devotees, eternal associates of Krishna, they were doing it because Krishna wanted them to.
Right.
And so there's some connection there. Krishna.
Right. Yeah. And I need to bring it. Maybe we're spending too much time on this point. We're overthinking it. It was just an interesting story. Yes.
On the topic of ridiculous amount of fun, my Guru Maharaj says that if you're not to be joyful is to be normal.
Mm.
If you're not joyful, then there's a problem. You
Right.
have to address that because we come to Krishna consciousness to become joyful.
Right. Yeah. And that's the point. That's actually there's kind of 3 points I wanted to make. So we're done with that one. That was a nice point though. But now what we're gonna and I'll get to that, or maybe we'll talk about that now. Yeah. So then we see Arjuna. He's not happy. He's really not happy. To the extent that you are feeling empty for all time. Right? We hear this kind of language used in the Shikshashtakam as well, right? That Yudaitam Nimeshana Chakshisha Pravishaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahanam. That one moment feels like 12 years or more. Now, if any of you have ever wondered about why it says 12 years because it says Yuga, and then Prabhupada translates it as 12 years. So I only found this out recently. I was listening, or a couple of years ago, I was listening to this class by Manidi Swami. And he was explaining that a yuga, that was a Sanskrit, just like a more colloquial term. Like it's been ages, like we say that meant 12 years. So, and also it's like the sun realigns itself in the sky every 12 years. Anyways, I thought that was... Oh no, sorry, Jupiter. The sun does that every year. And then, anyways, I thought that was interesting. So
Prabhupada said 12 years.
12 years is a yuga. Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't know that, but your Prabhupada said it as well. So, anyways, so the point that, is that Arjuna's not happy when Krishna's not there. And like Yudhisthira, we try, usually when we're not happy, we try and find a whole lot of other reasons why we're not happy. Right? We think about why we're not happy and we go, well, maybe I'm not happy because I don't have enough money. Right? Maybe I'm not happy because... And we can because we're in the material world, we're granted that facility, that opulence of being able to list unlimited things that are potentially making us unhappy. Right? There's a whole host of them. But one thing that we learn from this story is that none of those are the root of the problem. none of them, none of those things, if you adjust them, if you tweak them, are actually going to be the ones that make you happy. You're not happy because you don't have Krishna. You feel empty inside, maybe for all time, because we don't have Krishna, right? That loneliness, that sense of, we've all felt it. Despair. I think despair is the right word. Prabhupada used to say this, he used to commonly just refer to unfortunate. The denizens of the material world, the people specifically of Kali Yuga, he would just use that term unfortunate, which is just a really nice term because it kind of spreads out the blame. It's not like sinful. It's not your fault. It's just you're in a bad situation. This isn't a nice place. This is no place for a gentleman. Right? And the only way you're going to be happy is when you have Krishna. And when you don't have Krishna, you're not going to be happy. Right? And so this is going to lead me into this third point, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but this is something that I was thinking about myself over the last few months. This is kind of a philosophical doubt that arose. And it was, that atheistic idea, but I don't think we should chase away questions or thoughts. So this idea came into, well, why do we need Krishna to be happy? Like who does that? It's like a lot of you have maybe kids or family members or friends, and aren't you considered that really good friend or parent? If you can be detached and if you can let them go, and it's like it's not like well, unless you're with me, I'll tell you what, you're going to go through hell. That's kind of rough. But it's sort of it seems like that's the situation that Krishna put us in. It's like, no, you don't have to be with me. If you want, you can be in the material world with the tigress of material omniscience and see how that works for you. Right? And that's rough. And that's the situation we're put in. So I was thinking, why Krishna do that? That wasn't very nice. That's not very, or at least even if it is not, maybe, okay, it's because he loves us, but at least it's not very mature. That's something that a little kid might do. Like, fine, you want to be with me? And then they throw sand in your sweet rice or something. And then, so it's like, why? Why did Krishna do that? I don't get that. And so that was part of my concern. Another part of my concern was this idea, and it comes up in an earlier purport, where Prabhupada says that, and we're like sparks, and when we're with Krishna, we're really powerful and we're strong, we're bright. We carry the potency of fire, right? A spark straight out of the fire can light a forest fire. Everyone knows that. But a spark, after it's been away from the fire for a while, well, we don't really call it a spark anymore. I don't even know what it is. It's just gone, essentially. So it goes from being full of potency to having no potency. So that's like us. When we're with Krishna, we're full of potency. When we're away from Krishna, no potency. And I was like, why? Again, I was like, why is that? That's not very nice. It's like, aren't you considered a good son? I was thinking, like a good father. It's like he wants his son, to be respectful and to be nice, but he wants him to go do something with his life. Maybe even be Prabhupada writes in some purport that the father or the teacher wants their student or son to be better than they were. Right? This is, I don't remember what, but he writes that somewhere. And he says this is the qualification of a good father. They want their son to be better than they are. So it's like, move out, go, do your thing, figure out life, become a responsible person, and then we'll have a nice relationship. So it's like, so how come we don't get to do that? Where it's just, okay, you want to move out, you're going to suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer until you decide to move back in with your folks, essentially. Where we're like, okay, sorry, Krishna, I was rough out there. So, why? Why is that? That didn't seem fair to me. So I was thinking about these things a lot. And I hope I didn't, plant some, unshakable doubt in anyone's head, because I'm going to feel really terrible about that.
I'm going to be a Christian. I think I'm going to be a Christian.
Well, a similar thought recently that, when Krishna wants to find out what it's like to be, what Balaram is experiencing, it's the most intimate, most ecstatic incarnation of Krishna.
Yeah.
But if we want to find out what it's like to be Krishna, we suffer, like you said.
But Krishna doesn't suffer.
No, he doesn't. If he wants to experience what it's like for us as devotees, he gets glorified. But we, if we want to find out what it's like to be like him, we get punished.
Okay, but that just adds into my worldview of this not being fair.
I was just
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Right. So again, not fair.
It's not fair.
Yeah, it's not. It's really not.
We need to know the answer to this.
We do.
You've drawn it out
So-
far enough, I think. We need to know the answer.
Anyway, so I don't really have an answer to that. Any questions or comments?
Boo!
Yeah.
So, in the Prabhupada meditation book,
Yes.
when I read it sometimes, Leela has some, David, thank you for, that in there, they're saying that somehow or other, we give Krishna pain. Like, it's like because we're separate from him, and that we have some kind of relationship with Krishna, where Krishna feels somewhat a little pain. And so, and Prabhupada explains later, so you become Krishna conscious, and so Krishna will feel pleasure, and not that little pain. And the other thing was in Australia, I was listening to a Prabhupada saying, that same question came up, and Prabhupada explained that, well, Krishna didn't want you to go, but you persisted. You kept saying, no, I don't want to do this, no, I don't want to do this. And then Prabhupada said, okay. Then Krishna said, okay, you go.
Right. No, that's, yes.
Krishna can't help it because the fact is there is no other source of happiness. And that's just the way it is.
Well, but who made it that way?
Yeah, but he can't make another of himself.
But he
because
can make another
is.
source of happiness.
He is, but he makes temporary happiness. Yes, he does it all the time for us.
I know, but why? Why does it have to be temporary? You know, why can't you just live
You
your
need to
happy
explain
life?
it. I'm going to go
Because
there
there's
and beat you
no
up.
other source.
I need to know the answer.
There's no other source than Krishna.
I know, but anyway, whatever. We're not. This is getting circular.
So you can experience.
Yes, Ruth.
So the way we are created, we can be happy only with Krishna.
Right.
So if Krishna wants to create a material world in which we can be happy, then he has to come to the material world.
But we were okay.
We
Yeah.
cannot, if he has to create something separate, he still has to be there.
Right.
Otherwise we cannot be happy.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I completely agree.
So
I'm not arguing
it
with
ends
that.
up becoming a spiritual world again.
Right.
So,
Okay, but he made it like that.
Yeah. So
Are you going to answer or you want somebody else to answer?
No. I like that. This is good
Are you
because
gonna answer or
it's
you
always
want-
nice to
you
hear.
want- You want somebody else to answer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have what satisfied me. I'm not going to say I have the perfect answer, but I have what satisfied
Can we
me.
hear
So
your
we'll
answer?
get that. No, there's other people are still saying stuff. Yeah.
Like the little child, she can spend time with many other women, but only when she comes to the mother, she will be fully satisfied. So like that, we can go spend time other places,
Right.
but we need to come back.
Right, and I think you're really onto something there.
Yeah, otherwise we cannot, Krishna can create so many things for us, but that cannot make us happy, because only thing that can make us happy is when he comes there, we'll be happy.
Right. Okay. Great. And I think that's kind of what anyway. I'll talk about it in a sec. But other people want to say stuff. Yes, Bruce.
In Vedic astrology, there are signs that are destined to have a wonderful life, but then they have to lose that wonderful situation. Krishna lets us taste that sweetness, so we know it, and it's temporary, but he's the permanent sweetness.
Okay.
So
right.
some
Right.
people
So
will
there's
not-
some incentive. Okay. Fair enough.
If you know what it's like, then you lose it. But
Right.
if you go to Krishna, you don't lose it.
Right. Okay. But again, that seems like kind of a cheap trick.
Well, it works.
Let me answer your question.
Okay.
Don't hijack the side.
Just, in my humble opinion,
You taste it.
Yes.
when one is having a doubt like that, it's like if I'm a psychiatrist and a crazy person comes in and they start telling me how I know that person is sick. So I know in their mind the doubt that they're having is based upon their disease condition. So I'm thinking that once they become healthy, then this doubt is not there.
Right. Right.
So in a sense, that's the problem. We're in a disease condition.
Right.
So we're unable to really understand the proper state of the way we should relate to Krishna.
Yes. No.
So
That's
the first thing we have to do is
purify
cure the
ourselves.
disease.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. And that's a really good. That's. Yes. I'm going to try and sum up all this. Yeah.
Actually-
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Krishna didn't make it that. The only thing he created, an expansion of himself, creates the material world. The spiritual world is not created. There's no creation. It just is.
Right.
And it just is, and he just is the center. So he didn't make it that way. It always is, and he's always the center. And we love him. If we don't want that, then he creates a world and sets it up certain ways. So we're used to things being created and set up.
Right,
So
right.
we say why, but actually it just is.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine. We're not going to get back into this. Yes. No, I completely agree.
Could it be because, like, everyone has their own desires, so in this world we can all try to, like, pursue our own desire. But in the course of doing that and trying to find our own happiness, we might affect other people negatively. So
Okay,
that's where karma comes in.
well, that's a really pragmatic point.
Inside of this world.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I kind of cut you off.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, so the sorrow we get is kind of for our own fault because of karma and stuff, but that karma is to make things fair in this world. So, yeah, you might say that Krishna's not being fair by sending us here, but we kind of want it to be here, and in order to be here, there has to be some kind of balance so that we get what we are sending out to be.
That's a brilliant point, which I didn't think of, and thank you. That's great. Yeah, I'm just going to sum up what she said because it was brilliant. Well, what she just said is basically, well, it's not like you're suffering for no reason. You're suffering partially in this material world because you deserved it. That's what we understand the law of karma. It's like you live with a bunch of other people. It's like, if we all live, I mean, and you've all actually done this, anyone who's lived in an ashram, you live with people for long enough, there's some friction, So it's like every living entity, everything is alive around here, and we're always, let's bulldoze down all that stuff. We don't need that. Like even if it's something that simple, or, you pick someone up, there's so many things you can do. So we're just, what you reap is what you sow. We're just getting it back. So it's not like we're suffering just because this place is evil. We're suffering because we're not very nice people, and we're just getting what we're due. So I think that is a brilliant point. And it's simple, pragmatic, and nice. Yes.
So you use the analogy of a son leaving their parents and making their own way in the world.
Yes.
If you're thinking of Krishna as the parent, he does let us do that. He lets us go off and do our own thing. But often people do that when they're in kind of a rebellious and maybe not fully wisdom-filled space.
Right.
So often it's a mistake when a child goes out on their own like that. When they realize that, they come back, and it's not that the father... People usually don't make a life on their own. At some point they realize, oh, my parents were right all along.
Right.
They're the wise ones, and they come back, and
right.
a
And
father in that
establish
case...
that relationship.
Exactly. A father in that case would welcome them back with open arms.
Right, which Krishna definitely does. Okay, so excellent point. Thank you. Ma, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice discussion. Krishna says, like Mother Krishna was saying, he wants us to come back, and he has that verse out of thousands among men, some may endeavor for perfection, but those who reach perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So we really have to really learn what does Krishna wants, because he wants us back, and that's why he's super soul in our hearts. He's there to help us. He didn't just make us come to this material world all alone. He accompanies each and every soul. So he does really care, and it's...
Right. Yeah, and so I feel like talking, but yeah, all of you did give very nice answers. No, but really, all of you give brilliant answers. And it kind of actually centers a lot on what you said. So here's kind of how I resolved that for myself. So this was bothering me, and then I was in a class where I was in Denver at the time, and we were discussing, and I was spacing out, I think, but I was thinking about this, and there was this picture of Krishna charging at Bhishmadev. Everyone knows that picture. Great picture. One of the best, paintings in my opinion. He's charging Bhishmadev. Totally doesn't care about what's going on. He's got that wheel. Arjuna's like dragging at his legs, like stop, right? And he just doesn't care. And somehow or other, that kind of sparked what became the answer to, which is just, well, Krishna does the same thing to himself. It's not like Krishna's always having the greatest time and everything's always perfect and wonderful. Like, that's how we think. That's Vaikuntha. But Krishna, in his purest form, he's putting himself on, he's suffering. He's so angry at that moment that he's thinking, I don't care about what I said, I don't care about my vow. This guy tried to kill Arjuna, he's going down. Right? That's it. That's the only thing that's going through his head. And most of the time he kind of keeps his cool and he lets Arjuna fight. But when push comes to shove, he's like, he's like a, I'm not talking about tigers a lot, but he's like a tiger's protecting his cub. It's like, he's not going to let that happen. So then I realized that, or at least I kind of realized, I understood that for Krishna, it's not about, we're so kind of selfish, and like you said, we just kind of want to do our own thing, don't care about other people. That for us, pain is just the worst thing. The idea of suffering is like, oh my God. But Krishna suffers all the time. When Krishna's not with Srimad Radharani, he's suffering. Well, as someone over there, thank you whoever said it, but someone said that we give Krishna a little bit of pain when we're not with him. Right? So it's not like we're the only ones suffering because of our situation. But anyway, so I guess I kind of realized, or I kind of understood, which is what we always knew, that Krishna's doing this for our good. And Krishna, he really, and Prabhupada said, Krishna wants you to go back to Godhead more than you want to go back to Godhead. Right? So Krishna really, really wants us to be happy. He wants us all just to be together. And he's not seeing it as, yes, you can come back to Godhead, you can be the little servant boy, and I am God. Right? That's not the way Krishna looks at it. Krishna just wants to have a relationship with us. And we keep, blowing him off, essentially. Right? And then, like you said, why is the material world suffering? Well, it's suffering because you earned it. You're being a jerk. And then, anyways, so that was the last kind of, that just kind of re-sparked, because that was an ongoing thing in my head. So I thought it was a nice kind of conversation. It turned out to be. Yeah. So that's all I really had to say on this verse. I hope I didn't offend anyone by cutting them off or not giving them a chance to speak.
Well, I did want to say one more thing.
Yes.
In the spiritual world, not only is Krishna not a creator, but he's also not a father. It's not one of the 5 rasas. So it's not like our father wants us to come back. Our friend or our son or our lover wants us to come back. It's a different
right. That's interesting. Yeah. So are there any further questions or comments?
Well, the point is that my realization recently has been that, this is the only moment, this is the only window in a day of Brahma or in the material world of the various sampradayas where there's an opportunity to experience Krishna as a friend, as a son, as a lover, and all of the other sampradayas are leading towards either merging into the Brahmajyoti or on reverence.
Right.
And it's boring to just be always, oh, you're the greatest, you're the one.
Right.
Krishna wants friends, and he wants to he wants to play. He wants to, and he has the mood to maybe sometimes wrestle and things like that. And he wants to experience all of those things. So, we are the only fortunate living entities who are very unfortunate, basically speaking. Our fortune has been made by Prabhupada, is that we get the opportunity to get that kind of relationship with Krishna, whereas in all other ages, the only opportunity you get is on reverence, basically.
Right.
And so, so this is the most opportune moment in the material creation. But Krishna also doesn't just want to be worshipped on reverence. He wants a life.
Right.
He wants to have fun.
Right.
He wants relationships. And he wants us to be like friends, and he just wants us to love him.
Right. Yeah, we're being afforded that opportunity. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
He gave us free will to do as we wish, but he doesn't like that we're withholding our relationship from him.
Right. Yeah. We're just kind of stunting ourselves by being here. You can't live a full life without just acknowledging. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Yes, Mom?
So dormant love for Krishna is there in everyone's heart, and if something is blocking that, you have to see what is blocking that. For example, I recently was speaking to a lady, and she was saying, I don't really know if Krishna really loves me, and I don't really know whether I can ever get his love. And I said, let's see what was going on in her childhood. And then when we looked into that, she never had a father. Her mother was pregnant, and then very soon after that, the father was gone. So she never knew a father. I say, do you think that it's hard for you to visualize Krishna as a loving father because you didn't have a father? And she said, I think you've got something there. Because I've studied atheists, and most of them did not have a good relationship with their father. So many of the things we have gone through, maybe due to our karma or childhood experiences, if it is not addressed, can play out and prevent us from feeling Krishna's love.
Right. Yeah, and then it just comes down to what Prabhu said, or you have to, we just have to purify ourselves. You can't really trust our mind when we're insane. So, I don't remember exactly what time we end, but I think it's like now. So, so thank you all very much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Jai Gaur Premanande.